In this exercise, we'll be looking at shading. We'll start with some basic shapes. Materials needed. You'll need an HB pencil, a 2B pencil, and a 4B pencil. The first object we'll shade is a cube. The first thing we need to determine is where the light source is coming from. For all these objects, the light source will be coming from the top right. I'll begin by lightly shading with the HB pencil and give it a little bit of dimension. Then I'll go back in with the 2B pencil and I'll darken the side away from the light source. I'll continue with the 2B pencil and I'll shade the other side of the box lightly. I'll switch over to the 4B pencil, which is a softer lead but it's darker, and I'll shade in the side away from the light source even darker. I will switch back to the HB pencil and I'll soften all the shading. Then I'll draw in the cast shadow based on the direction of the light source, and I'll lightly shade that in with the HB pencil. I'll switch back to the 2B to darken the area where the box meets the floor. I'll switch back and forth between these three pencils just to soften the tones and the values. Here I'm going to use my triangle and the 2B pencil and I'll make the lines crisper. Our next object will be a spear. I've used a circle template to get us started. Again, the light source is coming from the top right. I'll begin by using my HB pencil. I'll darken the one side and towards the bottom and give it a little bit of dimension. Now I'll switch over to the 2B pencil and I'll darken the area away from the light source. Sometimes it's easier to rotate your page, to go with the arc of your hand. Now I'll switch to the 4B pencil and I'll darken it even further. I'll switch over to my HB pencil and I'll lightly shade in the cast shadow on the bottom. Then I'll switch back to my 2B pencil and I'll darken right underneath and blend it out. Notice I've left a little lighter area towards the bottom. This is for bounce light or reflected light. I'll go back in with my circle template and I'll make the lines crisper. Here I'm using an eraser to put in some of the highlights, and then a blending stump to blend between the tones to soften it. I'll continue to use the 4B and the 2B to give it more dimension and to soften it even further. Our next shape is a cylinder. Again, I'll start with the HB pencil and give it an overall shading based on the light source from the top right. I'll go back in and use a 2B to darken the one side away from the light source, and then eventually the 4B to darken it even further. I'll keep a highlight on the left side and I'll go back in with a ruler to crispen up the edges. Then I'll cast a shadow based on the light source and lightly shade it in with my HB pencil, followed by my 2B pencil to darken it. Our next shape is a pyramid. Following the rules of two-point perspective, I'll draw in my pyramid. Then I'll begin to shade it with my HB pencil with the light source coming from the top right. I will darken the area away from the light source using my 2B pencil. I'll go back in with a straight edge, with a sharp pencil, and I'll make the edges more crisp. When shading, it's important not to color the whole side in with just one tone, but rather create some subtle tonal shifts within the surface to give it more realism. Then we'll plot in the shadow based on the light source, and I'll do this with my HB pencil. Then I'll go back with my 2B pencil and I'll darken that shadow even further. Here I'm using an eraser and a blending stump just to blend it all together a little smoother. Our last shape is a cone. It's sort of a combination between a cylinder and a pyramid. I'll start with the HB pencil, move over to the 2B, and then darken with the 4B. I'll crispen up the edges with a straight edge and a sharp pencil, and then I'll cast the shadow based on the light source. Your shading exercise this week is to draw and shade these 5 objects with a light source coming from the top right.